My name is Renee Dunn, and I'm 28 years old. Growing up in Virginia Beach, my parents always made it crystal clear who the favorite was. My older brother got everything handed to him: private school, a used Ford Mustang at 16, even family trips to Europe that I could only dream about. Me, I scraped by on part-time jobs, bought a rusty bike with my own cash, and watched every dollar disappear into student loans while he sailed through college on their dime. Then, at 24, they threw a huge party when they handed him $200,000 to launch his tech startup, and in the same breath told me I didn't deserve any help because I refused to follow Dad's medical path. I walked out that night, blocked every number, and vanished to Austin, Texas. 2 years later, Mom was cruising through a gated neighborhood looking for listings when she spotted my name on a mailbox attached to a $1.2 million house. She called Dad in hysterics, demanding to know how I pulled it off. If this kind of family betrayal hits too close to home, smash that like button and subscribe right now, because every week we rip the mask off toxic family secrets you won't believe. By the time I turned 16, the gap between me and my older brother Jace Dunn had become impossible to ignore. Mom and Dad sat us down in the living room one Saturday morning, keys dangling from Dad's hand like some kind of trophy. They handed them to Jace with huge smiles, announcing he'd earned a used Ford Mustang for keeping his grades up and helping around the house. I remember staring at the shiny red paint in our driveway later that day, my stomach twisting as Jace revved the engine just to show off to the neighbors. Meanwhile, I'd been begging for months to get a secondhand scooter so I could stop relying on the city bus to get to my weekend shifts. No luck. Instead, I took on extra hours at Sweet Waves Bakery down by the boardwalk, kneading dough from dawn until my arms ached just to save enough for a rusty bike I found on Craigslist. It had flat tires and a chain that slipped every few blocks, but it was mine, paid for with tips from tourists who barely looked up from their phones. School made the favoritism even sharper. Jace got shipped off to Norfolk Academy, this fancy private school 20 minutes away, where uniforms cost more than my entire wardrobe. He came home bragging about lacrosse practice, debate club, and teachers who knew his name before he even walked in. I stayed at the local public high school, crammed into overcrowded classrooms with textbooks that fell apart at the seams. My guidance counselor pushed me toward community college tracks because realistic options matter for families like yours, but I knew the truth. Jace's path was paved with parental checks while mine required scholarships I had to hunt down myself. During junior year, Jace's big reward for acing his SATs was a 2-week trip to Europe over summer break. Mom packed his suitcase with new clothes, and Dad slipped him extra spending money for souvenirs. They framed the photos when he got back, Jace, in front of the Eiffel Tower, grinning like he owned the world. I spent that same summer flipping burgers at a beach shack, coming home sunburned and smelling like grease, counting every penny toward application fees no one else would cover. When college decisions rolled around, the pattern repeated itself without surprise. Jace scored a full ride to Virginia Tech courtesy of Dad's alumni connections, and a fat donation to the engineering department. Move-in day for him looked like a celebration. Mom crying happy tears, Dad loading the Mustang with dorm supplies paid for in cash. I applied to the local community college because it was the only affordable start, taking out loans that made my hands shake when I signed the papers. To cover books and lab fees, I juggled 2 jobs: early mornings at the bakery and late nights stocking shelves at a 24-hour pharmacy near the ocean front. Exhaustion became my constant companion, but quitting wasn't an option. One evening during orientation week, I met my best friend Jordan York in the financial aid line. She was fighting the same battle parents who couldn't or wouldn't help loans stacking up, and a determination that matched mine. We bonded over cheap coffee in the campus cafeteria, trading stories about side hustles and scholarship deadlines. Jordan became the one person who truly understood what it meant to build everything from scratch. No safety net, no excuses. 6 years after starting community college, the breaking point finally arrived during what should have been a routine family gathering. Jace had just turned 27, and my parents decided to mark the occasion with a lavish party at our Virginia Beach home, inviting extended family, old neighbors, and even some of Dad's colleagues from the hospital. The backyard was strung with lights, tables groaning under catered seafood and custom cakes, all to celebrate my father, Dr. Ralph Dunn, and my mother, Wanda Dunn, handing over a check for $200,000 so Jace could launch his long-dreamed tech startup focused on medical apps. Guests toasted his ambition, clapping him on the back as he outlined plans for investor meetings and prototype demos, while I stood off to the side nursing a soda, feeling like an intruder in my own house. Mom pulled me aside earlier that evening to whisper how proud she was of Jace's drive, contrasting it subtly with my unstable choices in skipping pre-med tracks. The money came from years of savings they'd earmarked specifically for him. No questions about fairness raised by anyone except me in my own head. The real explosion happened 2 nights later over a quiet dinner that was anything but. Dad had invited Jace and me to discuss future plans, but it quickly turned into an intervention about my career trajectory. I'd been working entry-level coding gigs remotely while piecing together an online business degree, explaining how software development paid better than nursing without the burnout. Dad leaned back in his chair, fork paused mid-air, and laid it out plain. Following his footsteps in cardiology was the only proven path in our family, and since I'd rejected it, I didn't deserve any help from their resources. Mom nodded along, adding that Jace's startup aligned perfectly with modern healthcare needs, justifying every penny. When I pushed back, asking why my independence wasn't equally valued, Dad's voice rose. He repeated that I didn't deserve any help, that self-made meant handling everything alone from now on. The words landed heavy, echoing the imbalances I'd felt for years but never voiced so directly. Jace sat silent, avoiding my eyes, focused on his plate, as if the conversation had nothing to do with him. I excused myself before dessert, heart pounding, as I climbed the stairs to my childhood bedroom for what I knew would be the last time. Packing took less than an hour, clothes into a duffel, laptop and external drive into a backpack. A few sentimental photos slipped into a side pocket. Downstairs, voices murmured on without me, laughter filtering up as if nothing had shattered. I left a note on the kitchen counter. No accusations, just a simple statement that I needed space to build my life my way. By morning, I'd blocked their numbers on my phone, unfollowed every family account on social media, and deleted group chats that once felt obligatory. Driving west in my paid-off sedan loaded with essentials and a roadmap app guiding the route, the Atlantic Ocean faded in the rearview mirror. The journey spanned multiple days, stopping at motels along interstates fueled by gas station coffee and podcasts about entrepreneurship. Crossing state lines felt liberating, each mile widening the distance from expectations I no longer carried. Arriving in Austin marked a deliberate reset, choosing the city for its booming tech scene and affordable outskirts compared to coastal prices. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment in a complex near downtown, using the last of my savings for first month's rent and a security deposit. Unpacking consisted of stacking boxes in corners, hanging a single poster of code snippets on the wall as motivation. Job hunting started immediately, uploading resumes to local startups, networking on professional forums, and attending virtual meetups from my folding table desk. The isolation stung at first, nights quiet without familiar voices, but it also clarified priorities, no more seeking approval, only forward momentum. Friends from online communities filled the void, gradually offering advice on everything from freelance platforms to Texas driver's license swaps. Settling into routines, grocery runs at central markets, evening walks along Lady Bird Lake helped root the decision, turning a hasty exit into a foundational choice. Turning 25 meant committing to routines that pushed every limit, waking at 5 to code before the Texas heat kicked in. My apartment served as headquarters, a single room where the bed doubled as storage for hardware prototypes, and the floor held stacks of research papers on machine learning for cardiology. 16-hour stretches became standard, broken only by quick meals of ramen or delivery salads, eyes glued to screens optimizing neural networks for early detection of atrial fibrillation. Early iterations failed spectacularly in tests requiring nights rewriting code from scratch, while coffee brewed in a pot that never fully emptied. Progress felt incremental, but persistence paid off with a functional beta that processed ECG data faster than manual reviews. Securing the first client required persistence beyond development. I targeted St. David's Medical Center in Austin through persistent outreach, sending tailored proposals highlighting cost savings from proactive alerts. A chief cardiologist finally agreed to a trial after reviewing anonymized case studies, integrating the platform into their outpatient monitoring for high-risk patients. Feedback loops refined the AI, incorporating edge cases like variable heart rhythms during exercise, leading to endorsements that opened doors to affiliated clinics. Revenue from subscription fees funded upgrades, moving operations to a rented suite in a North Austin business park, with whiteboards covering walls and servers humming in a corner closet. Hiring part-time specialists for validation ensured HIPAA compliance, building credibility through audited reports. By 27, scalability attracted serious attention from venture funds specializing in health tech. Demo days involved flying to conferences in Dallas and Houston, presenting metrics on reduced hospital readmissions backed by pilot data. Acquisition talks initiated with a national chain seeking proprietary algorithms to bolster their telehealth division. Due diligence dragged through financial audits and code reviews, but the offer solidified at $15 million, structured with milestones for post-sale consulting. Wires hit the bank on a Tuesday morning, transforming abstract numbers into tangible freedom. Clearing remaining educational debt happened with one transfer, eliminating monthly reminders of past struggles. House hunting followed immediately, focusing on Westlake Hills for its proximity to trails and quiet streets away from downtown noise. The chosen property featured contemporary architecture with stone accents, a gourmet kitchen for occasional entertaining, and a backyard pool that promised relaxation after years of sacrifice. Closing involved standard inspections and appraisals, finalizing ownership with keys handed over on a clear afternoon. Furnishing prioritized functionality, a standing desk in the study, ergonomic chair for long sessions, and art prints celebrating Austin's music scene on neutral walls. Word of Jace's venture reached me indirectly through industry newsletters and former contacts. His app struggled with user adoption, features overhyped without underlying data integrity, draining the $200,000 on marketing campaigns and office leases that yielded little return. Suppliers went unpaid, prompting legal notices, and the platform folded amid mounting deficits. He shifted to odd jobs in sales, regrouping in a shared rental far from initial ambitions. One Saturday morning, 2 years after the sale, Mom found herself navigating upscale neighborhoods in Austin on a routine client search. She had flown in from Virginia Beach 2 days earlier for a regional real estate conference at the convention center, staying at a mid-tier hotel near the airport to save on expenses amid a sluggish market back home. The event focused on luxury listings in emerging tech hubs, prompting her to extend the trip for potential leads in areas like Westlake Hills, where high-net-worth buyers relocated. Renting a silver compact SUV from the airport counter, she programmed the GPS for a loop through gated communities, notepad on the passenger seat for jotting addresses and square footage estimates. Traffic was light for a weekend, allowing leisurely drives past properties with for sale signs from competing brokerages. Cruising along a tree-lined boulevard with views of the Colorado River in the distance, Mom slowed to photograph a mid-century modern with a pending sticker, mentally calculating commission splits. Turning into an exclusive enclave marked by stone entry pillars, she scanned mailboxes for owner names to cross-reference public records later. One stood out immediately, a sleek black box on a limestone post, engraved in brushed metal, with Renee Dunn alongside the house number. She braked hard tires, crunching on gravel, staring in disbelief at the expansive residence beyond the automatic gate, 2 stories of glass and steel infinity edge pool visible from the street, and landscaping that rivaled model homes in brochures. Pulling out her phone, she zoomed in on comparable sales from a realtor app, confirming the area's median price hovered around $1.2 million for similar builds. Hands shaking, Mom dialed Dad right there from the curb engine idling as a jogger passed with a wave. He picked up on the second ring, sounding distracted from yard work. She blurted the discovery without preamble, voice rising as she described the mailbox, the architecture, the sheer scale that screamed wealth accumulated in secret. Dad interrupted with questions: exact street lot size, any visible cars in the driveway, trying to ground the shock in facts. Mom's words tumbled over each other, emphasizing how I'd built this without family knowledge, tears streaming as she gripped the wheel. The conversation stretched Dad's tone, shifting from skepticism to concern, suggesting she document everything discreetly before leaving. Neighbors' curtains twitched, but she remained parked, replaying childhood milestones against this unexpected pinnacle. Back at the hotel that evening, after a failed attempt to network at the conference mixer, Mom drafted messages on her phone, deleting and rewriting to strike the right balance. The first read, simply, "Saw your house today in Austin. We need to talk, as a family." She attached the mailbox photo, time-stamped and geotagged. My notification pinged during a home workout, the Virginia area code, triggering a pause on the treadmill. A follow-up arrived minutes later. "So much has changed. Please just hear us out. Then another coffee tomorrow. I'm in town until Tuesday." The persistence stirred old resentments, but silence felt unsustainable with proof now in hand. Consulting Jordan over a late video call, I weighed risks: public venue, essential, no home address shared. She recommended Houndstooth Coffee downtown, crowded on weekends with laptops and baristas calling orders loudly. I replied affirmatively, specifying the location and time, adding that the meeting would be brief and on neutral terms. Mom's response came with emojis of relief, promising to respect boundaries. Preparations included mapping the route, arriving early to secure a corner table away from entrances, and mentally scripting deflections for predictable pleas. The meeting unfolded under fluorescent lights, with the hum of espresso machines providing constant background noise. Mom arrived first, clutching a paper cup like a lifeline, eyes red from what looked like a sleepless night. Dad followed minutes later, tie loosened and face etched with lines deeper than I remembered, while Jace trailed behind, carrying a folder of documents. They claimed chairs opposite me at the small table, the public setting forcing composed postures, despite underlying tension. Small talk about Austin weather fizzled quickly, giving way to the purpose they had coordinated en route from the airport. Dad started with his situation, explaining a surgical error during a routine bypass that led to complications and a malpractice review board. The hospital suspended him pending investigation, revoking privileges, and triggering license scrutiny from the state medical board. Income halted, overnight savings depleted on legal fees and living expenses, without malpractice insurance fully covering the claim. Mom interjected about the real estate downturn, commissions drying up as inventory sat unsold and buyers vanished in a high-interest environment. Her agency downsized, leaving her with part-time showings that barely covered gas for open houses. Jace laid out his collapse methodically, admitting the startup imploded under unsustainable burn rate and failed pivots. Creditors pursued judgments, forcing asset liquidation that left nothing after debts. He bounced between friends' couches in Virginia suburbs, taking gig deliveries for cash while avoiding eviction notices from prior leases. The folder contained printed bank statements and foreclosure warnings, visual proof of rock bottom. Each presented a request for $150,000, Dad for settlement negotiations and relocation, Mom for bridging until market recovery, Jace for a fresh start in a lower-cost area. They framed it as temporary loans, promising repayment plans tied to future stability, eyes pleading for the family bond to override past grievances. I listened without interrupting, sipping iced latte as baristas called orders around us. When they finished, I set the cup down firmly and delivered the response honed in advance. You chose Jace years ago with every resource and endorsement I said evenly. Now live with the consequences of those priorities. No loans, no bailouts, no further involvement in paths you dismissed. Mom's tears started immediately spilling over as she reached across the table, whispering apologies mixed with justifications about parental mistakes. Dad's face-hardened voice rising in accusation about ingratitude and abandoning blood-drawing glances from nearby patrons. Jace leaned forward, desperately listing specific regrets and promising change if given this one chance, hands clasped in supplication. Their reactions escalated in waves, Mom sobbing into napkins, Dad pounding the table lightly while demanding acknowledgement of their efforts, Jace cycling between blame and bargains. The noise attracted a manager's concerned approach, prompting me to stand and signal the end. Walking out into sunlight, I blocked the new numbers they had used for coordination, deleted the coffee shop thread, and enabled Do Not Disturb for unknown contacts. Driving home along familiar routes, the finality settled without regret, boundaries reinforced permanently. Months after the confrontation, Dad's downward spiral accelerated into full dependency on alcohol to cope with professional ruin. The malpractice board delivered a final ruling permanently revoking his medical license after evidence of impaired judgment in follow-up cases surfaced. Clinics refused references, and former colleagues distanced themselves to protect reputations, leaving him unemployable in any healthcare capacity. Bottles accumulated in the home office once filled with awards, daily routines revolving around liquor store runs, and isolated evenings in front of the television. Attempts at rehab failed. Midway insurance lapsed without premiums, and isolation deepened as social invitations ceased. Mom faced foreclosure pressures that forced a fire sale on the Virginia Beach property, accepting an offer well below asking to avoid bankruptcy proceedings. Proceeds covered outstanding mortgages and agent fees, netting just enough for a down payment on a cramped two-bedroom apartment in an aging complex near the interstate. Downsizing meant garage sales for furniture and heirlooms boxes labeled for donation piling in hallways. Part-time administrative work at a dental office provided minimal income supplemented by food assistance programs she once judged others for using. Neighbors in the building remained strangers, evenings spent scrolling listings that never converted to closings. Jace sustained himself through app-based delivery services, biking shifts for platforms like DoorDash and Uber Eats in unpredictable weather. Earnings fluctuated with tips and surge pricing barely covering phone bills and storage units for remaining possessions. Temporary stays rotated among acquaintances, growing weary of the arrangement, duffel bags serving as wardrobes and fast food wrappers as meals. Job applications for entry-level tech support went unanswered, skills outdated without continuous learning opportunities. Inspired by the contrast, I channeled resources into establishing the Dunn Independent Scholarship Fund, partnering with Austin community colleges to identify candidates from similar backgrounds. Initial endowment came from a portion of acquisition proceeds, structured through a nonprofit advisor for tax efficiency and sustainability. Selection criteria emphasized self-funding through employment, academic persistence, despite loans and essays detailing overcoming familial non-support. First cohort awarded 10 recipients full tuition coverage plus stipends for books and laptops announced at a modest ceremony, with local media coverage highlighting resilience narratives. Expansion followed positive feedback incorporating mentorship pairings with industry professionals and internship placements at partnering firms. Annual galas raised additional donations from tech executives, moved by recipient stories, growing the principal to support 20 awards the following cycle. Administrative oversight ensured transparency via public dashboards, tracking disbursements and graduate outcomes, building donor confidence. Personal involvement included quarterly review meetings and occasional guest lectures on bootstrapping careers in software development. The family's consequences crystallized a truth I now share openly. Family rejection is the starting point for building the life you truly want. It strips away illusions of obligation, freeing energy to invest in chosen networks and personal growth without inherited expectations. Their choices led to self-inflicted isolation, while mine forged independence that multiplied impact beyond blood ties. To everyone who stayed until the end, thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to this raw chapter of my journey. Your time means the world, and I'm genuinely grateful for the community we're building here. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. What resonated most, or a similar experience you've navigated? Sharing helps others feel less alone, so let's keep the conversation going.